So Matt talked a little bit about and alluded to my story, and whenever I'm interviewed or asked to speak, it's always the first question is why? What compelled you to start this? Why do you do this? And I've got a pretty good set of canned responses that get me through it, and when I was asked to talk to you guys tonight for the first time, I felt really compelled to share my whole story. And it's the first time I've done this publicly, and I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm really excited to share that with you. And how it goes is I'm really the original case study for outdoor outreach. When I spoke about those negative cycles and those negative patterns, that's something that I had to overcome as a child, and my family had a legacy of addiction and abuse and neglect, and I'm proud to say that I'm the first person in 3 generations of my family that wasn't a drug addict or an alcoholic. And thank you. And, I grew up in a very unsafe environment, and what was really an awful situation turned really horrific for me as a kid. From the ages I was about 5 to 10 years old, I had a relative emerge, and off and on for those 5 years, I was abused and tortured in just the most off-the-charts, traumatic way, undescribable way you could picture. And it's the kind of abuse and that you're not supposed to recover from and not supposed to survive. And the abuse and trauma was so intense those years that it's interesting as a kid, you checked out, you don't feel anything, you go away. But what that's replaced with is this ever-present, very intense, constant feeling of, hate and shame and guilt and just this, self-loathing. It's awful. And, the rest of my childhood and into my teen years, I spent, despondent, isolated, and suicidal. And, I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I want to tell you about my experience, and this is also the experience of a lot of the kids that we're working with. When I talk about being suicidal, it was, it wasn't like, this violent, black nail polish, Megadeth sort of thing. It was this. I remember fantasizing about it, and I would fantasize about it. And the way I fantasized about blowing my brains out. And when I can remember it, really vividly right now. And it was, I guess, the best way that I could describe it. It was just sort of like the most, delicious feeling of just if it would just all stop and all end, and it would just, And when I'm asked why I do this and why the work's so important, you can pick up a paper or turn on the news, and there's a lot of messed up stuff going on out there, and there's a lot that our culture and our society and our country has to be ashamed about. But to let our kids feel that way and to go through that, it's the biggest shame that this country has, and that's what my work is about, is to do whatever I can to stop that.
I wondered you were going to be fine.
So yeah, Juan and I have been working through this for this is the first time I've really told my whole story, and I've been pretty stressed about it. And Juan's really brave, and he gets up here and tells his story all the time, and he's like, it's no big deal, forget it. So, the real shame is my story is not unique, and it's happening out there to hundreds of thousands of kids as we speak right now. And what I do want to also share with you is there is a unique part of my story, and that unique part of my story is, it starts. I had a stepfather who was an outdoor guy and skied and camped and all that sort of stuff, and he opened the door to the outdoors for me. And what happened is at 18, as soon as I graduated, I moved out right away, and I got a job washing dishes at a ski lodge in Alta, in Utah, at the Alta Peruvian Lodge. And so I started skiing every single day. And this, a couple things happened up there for me is, one, skiing became this very cathartic thing for me. And every day, especially, the first couple years that I was up there, I raged on the mountain every day, and all my anger and hate and everything just, came out on the mountain. And, it was a huge healing for me. Also just, I don't know how many of you have been up to Alta. It is, really one of the most amazing places in the world. I've been lucky enough now I've been all over the world, and it's my favorite place. And just being in that environment is, extremely healing. And what started happening after a couple years is that process from, this cathartic purge out there turned into this sort of joyous bliss. And I don't know how many of you guys got to experience an A+ Alta Powder Day, but it's a pretty transformative experience. And so I spent 8 years in Alta and skied 150 days every year, and spent summer, started climbing, started surfing and kayaking all over the world. I had this, just amazing life. It saved my life. And there's another good side story is we've got a couple of the other kids, I always call them kids, but they're young men who are from our leadership program who, for the last couple of years, go up there and are washing dishes at the Peruvian Lodge. And they're now trying to become professional snowboarders, and they're doing great. But when I was asked to talk, right as I felt immediately compelled to okay, this is where I'm going to share my story. And I came across a quote right afterwards that is from one of my heroes who's he's a mythologist, Joseph Campbell. He's the Follow Your Bliss guy. And so I found another quote from him, and it's here's the quote. It's, "Find a place inside where there is joy, and the joy will burn out the pain." And so I read that, and it just completely sums up what happened with me and my healing process and how my life was saved. And wow, this is it. It also really sums up the work that we're doing for outdoor outreach. I think there were a couple reasons I really wanted to share my story with you guys here. And one is, really honestly, I don't think I can tell all of my story and share it all without telling you, this company and you guys are a huge part of this story, of my story. And, the first pair of climbing shoes and sleeping bag I bought at the REI in Salt Lake on 33rd Street. When, that wasn't Greg again, was it? No? When I first moved from Alta to San Diego to start outdoor outreach, I walked into the store off of Convoy, walked into the climbing department, talked to the guy behind the climbing counter, tell him about my crazy idea to take kids climbing, and this guy Jeremy worked for free for 2 years, helping me run climbing trips. The first grant Outdoor Outreach got came from REI, and you guys have, yes, thank you. And you guys have supported us in an amazing way every single year since then. We have dozens of volunteers in our organization that are REI employees. One of our strongest board members, Todd Smith, is an REI employee. I'd really like to take a second and acknowledge Matt and Tom and David J.O. and Michael Collins, who have over the years, really taken some time personally for me as I've been trying to grow Outdoor Outreach, and given me advice and counseled me and supported me, and that's been a huge thing for me, and thank you for that. And to say that that REI has been our biggest supporter, which is true, to me seems really inadequate. And telling the story of Outdoor Outreach, it's you guys are part of Outdoor Outreach. You're an integral, tangible part of the work that we do, and we couldn't do our work without you. And you guys should all feel really amazing about that. And thank you, really, thank you. And, I had the second thought, which was, reading that Joseph Campbell quote, what is it? Find a place inside where there is joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. And I don't think it's just appropriate for me and for our program. I think it's really appropriate for you guys and for this company. And when I think, and I don't know what you guys did here today, and if you were, who knows what you guys did. And, and if you're, and I know it's a down economy, and I know there's, crazy shenanigans, and I know who knows what the heck's going on here. But it's what is it that REI really does is you guys are merchants of joy. That's, that's really, at the heart of what you guys do, and you did it for me, and you've done it for Juan, and you do it for, Sally, how many members do you guys have? 10 million. You do it for 10 million people. You are there to facilitate this process for people, and it's not a bullshit line. It's you really, yeah, or whatever, J.O. Yeah, coming from J.O. And every day, I know all the people that run into your stores every day. A lot of them don't have as dramatic a story as I do, but that family that comes in and buys the tent and the sleeping bags for the first time, and that, you guys are facilitating this amazing process, and you guys are doing this really amazing work. And I'm sure, in your day-to-day lives, in your job descriptions, as you're dealing with all the crap you don't want to deal with, and P&Ls or whatever, all the crappy stuff in your jobs, it's really difficult to keep that perspective. But, especially here in this room as leaders, I think ultimately it is your primary job and responsibility is to steward that exactly, with your teams, with the employees. Is everybody focused on that? It's this is what we're really doing. This is what we're really about, and this is awesome. This is, what a blessing it is for you guys to be able to do this for me, for all of these people that you do, and it's amazing. And thank you so much for what you do.